Alright, today we're going to learn the third way to solve a quadratic. So the first two ways is factoring and graphing. Factoring you can only use when a quadratic can be factored. And graphing, then you can use it for any quadratic except for those that have no roots. Quadratic formula you can use for any quadratic, especially those with no roots. But it's kind of time consuming, and so that's why it's not usually the first choice, but if you really like it, you could use it for every problem. So the quadratic formula is this big long thing right here. The a, b, and c come from the numbers before the x squared, the x, and the number that stands alone. So I'm going to show you that all three methods can get the same answer. So the first method is graphing. And so we have this quadratic, and we're going to put it into y equals like so, have 0 and y2, hit second trace 5. I'm going to hit enter, enter, enter. I get -4 as my first one. Now I'm going to do it again. Second trace 5, I'm going to move it to the other side. And I hit enter, 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 and I get 1. So -4 and 1. So for factoring, I'm going to put -4 up top, 3 down bottom. To multiply to -4 and add to 3, it's 4 and -1. So my two factors are x plus 4 and x minus 1. So this one, x would equal -4 and x would equal 1. So the same thing, -4 and 1. So either way gets you the same, and I think those are fairly easy, but you can use the quadratic formula. And so we have our a, in this case, there's nothing there, so we assume that a is 1. Our b is this 3, the middle number, and our c is -4. You got to bring the sign with it. So what you do first is you plug it into the formula, so negative, and then we put our b in. So our b was 3, and then plus minus, and I'll explain what that means a little bit later, and then b squared, so b again is 3, so 3 squared, minus 4, and then ac. So a again is 1, and c is -4. And then this is all over 2a, and I get a again is 1. So then how you're going to go about doing this is you're going to grab your calculator, and you're going to go to the blank screen. And what you're going to do is just going to put the stuff that's underneath the radical in without the radical. So 3 squared minus 4ac. Notice the square root symbol is not in there. And I get 25. So I got -3 plus or minus. We just got 25, and it's all over 2 times 1, which is 2. Then after you do that, what you want to do is you want to break down the radical if you can. So 5 and 5 go into it. That's a double. So I have -3 plus or minus. I bring the double on the outside. There's no leftover, so I don't have a radical. And it's all over 2. Notice that double did not skip over the plus minus and multiply by the 3. So now if there are no radicals or i's, what you're going to actually do is solve this problem. So you're going to put in your calculator or use your brain. You're going to do these two things. You're going to do -3 plus 5 divided by 2, and you're going to do -3 minus 5 divided by 2. So -3 plus 5 is 2, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. So that's the first root, which is just like what we got in the other two methods. -3 minus 5 is -8, divided by 2 is -4, which is what we got using the other two methods. Let's do a few more. So again, a is 2, b is -5, and c is 1. So it goes -b. Since the b is already a -5, it'll become a +5, plus or minus square root of b squared. You got to make sure, since it's a negative number, it goes in parentheses, and the square goes on the outside, minus 4, and then ac. This is all over 2a. So I go to my calculator. I put what's underneath the parentheses in, or underneath the radical. And I get 17. So I have 5 plus or minus 17 underneath the radical, all over 4. Then I try to break down 17 and I can't, so that is my final answer. And you could have graphed that one as well, and you would have just got really gross decimals. However, you could not have used method 2 because that cannot be factored. For example 2, before I do anything, I need to subtract over that 4, so it equals 0. So my A in this case would be 1, my B would be -2, my C would be -4. So negative B would turn that into a positive 2 plus or minus B squared minus 4A, which is 1, C, -4. That's all over 2A. So I grab my calculator. I put in -2 squared minus 4AC. And I get 20. So I have 2 plus or minus square root of 20 over 2. If you notice up here, the word this week is Metallica. So in your quiz tomorrow, you're going to have to write Metallica, pick it as one of your options. So I would write it down in your notebook right now. All right, now for this one, now we break down 20. So 2 goes into it 10 times. 2 goes into that 5 times. So it has a double 2. And so I'm going to come over here. That double 2 goes right there in front of the radical, and I had a 5 left over on the inside. And it's all over 2. So then the last thing I can do is if all 3 of the outsides can be reduced, then you want to do it. So this 2, and this 2, all 3 have to be able to be reduced. If one of them cannot be reduced by that number, then don't reduce. But all those 2's are divisible by 2, so I'm going to divide them all by 2. So it'll leave with 1's there. And I'll be left with plus minus. And then what's underneath the radical doesn't change at all. So that would be my final answer. And you could just write it as 1 plus or minus square root of 5. Next one, I have my A, B, and C. So negative B, make it a positive 4. -4 squared minus 4AC. And it's all over 2A. So now I do -4 squared minus 4AC and I get -560. So I have 4 plus or minus -560, and this is all over 2 times 12, which is 24. And so this is the first time we've had a negative number. So if you think back to our other unit, how you get rid of a negative number is you make it a plus and you just put an I on the outside. Now I'm going to break down 560 as normal. So 2 goes into 280 times. 2 goes into that 140 times. 2 goes into that 70 times. 2 goes into that 35 times. And then 5 and 7. So I have a double 2 here, another double 2 here. So I have 4 plus or minus, and then I have 2 pairs of 2, so that's 4. I have my I that I already brought out, and then I have a 7 and a 5 left over, so 35, all over 24. So then I look at my outside, so that 4, 4, and 24 can all be reduced by 4. So I'm going to divide them all by 4, so that'll turn that into a 1, that into a 1. I don't change the inside. And on the bottom, 24 divided by 4 is 6. And that is my final answer right here. This last one, it only has 2 terms, so you need to compare it to the another one. So I'm comparing that to like this one, and I ask myself, what am I missing? Am I missing A, B, or C? So what I'm missing is the B. So that's A, and that's C. So that is for us to assume that B equals 0 in this case. So I would have to do negative B, so just 0, plus or minus B squared, 0 squared, minus 4A and C, all over 2A. So then I do 0 squared minus 4 times 3 times -24. And I get 288. So I have 0 plus or minus 288 all over 6. And then I break down the 288. So that would be 2 and 144, 2 and 72, 2 and 36, 2 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 3. So when I'm circling my doubles, I have a double here, a double here, and a double here. So I will have my 0 plus minus. I had a double 2, and a double 3, so 2 times 2 times 3 is 12. And I was left with a 2 right here. And this is all over 6. That 0 out front, you don't really need it because if you add or subtract 0 from something, it doesn't make a difference. So really I'm just left with plus minus 12 square root of 2 over 6. And now I can divide the 12 and the 6 right here because they're both divisible by 6. So I'm going to divide them both by 6. And I get 2 on top. I have a 1 on bottom, which I don't have to write. That plus minus will have to stay out front, and that is your final answer.